Would you say hello to them through chat? Open your chat
Okay.
window and you could submit questions that way.
Oops.
Okay, I put my password in, so normally I go here.
I think that this one might be a little different. Try going on the browser here. And then I guess type in like.
Why don't you just go on your phone?
Look like
I'll
this.
just go on my phone, that's all right.
Sometimes it pulls up like a waiver thing when you go into your browser on the library's internet.
Yeah, Carol had to say I accept. But
I try doing that. Like click any of these websites really. Like try this Amazon, see if that works. Yeah, there you go. There's the waiver.
Click over
I
here.
accept.
And then connect. Yeah.
There you go.
Thank
Then,
you.
then I,
Yep.
then I, oh, okay.
Then you can just go
Oh,
wherever now.
So that's where you're at?
And I'm a female.
Thank you.
also.
For those of you who don't already know me, I'm Terri Lemmel. I'm not in fact John Doe as it says on my Zoom screen. And I volunteer with the County Genealogical Society. I've been interested in genealogy since the 90s and have studied it off and on, but it wasn't until I retired 5.5 years ago that I jumped in with both feet. And I've really learned a lot about doing genealogy and about my DNA and my DNA matches. I did my DNA on Ancestry in 2015, and since then I've come to manage 7 other DNA profiles and have viewing privileges on 3 more besides that. So I've really immersed myself in it, and I want to share some of that with you. I'm going to try to share my screen with you. Everybody on Zoom see my screen? You seeing it?
I see Ginger.
Okay. This is Ginger, my research assistant. She's really pretty, but she takes terrible notes. So what is DNA? This is in your handout packet if you want to look at your own copy there. Well, the definition of DNA, it's an organic, chemical, or complex molecular structure that is responsible for all functions of life. And you probably learned that biology somewhere in your past. But an easy way to think of it is DNA is a long piece of string, genes are knots in the string, and chromosomes are a big coil of knots. So you may be surprised to learn that each cell, the nucleus in each cell, has 23 pairs of chromosomes of varying sizes, about 21,000 genes, more than 3 billion base pairs, and base pairs are these little ladder shapes that connect the 2 strands of DNA. And of those billions of base pairs, 99% of them are identical in all humans. So DNA really is preoccupied with keeping you alive, making sure your liver does liver stuff and your lungs do lung stuff. It's really determining the color of your eyes and the tone of your skin is a secondary function. Then outside the nucleus, there's also what's called mitochondrial DNA, and that DNA breaks down nutrients into something that the cells can use. And all of that combined makes up an individual's genome. So science has found a way to winnow out the tiny differences that identify an individual and their kin. That's pretty amazing. And matches of DNA are expressed in centimorgans, which is abbreviated with a small c, capital M. I think they did that to differentiate it from centimeters. And science has given us all this technology, but did you ever think of yourself as a scientist? Because truly you are. If you're doing genealogy properly, you're a scientist and you need to follow scientific rules of evidence. And when new evidence is found, then you have to alter your conclusions. So let's look at the types of direct-to-consumer DNA tests that are available. There are all sorts of DNA tests in the medical world, but direct-to-consumer offers 3 basic tests. And the most common one, and this is what they do at Ancestry, is autosomal DNA, and that's the DNA that you inherit from both parents. It's a blend of all your ancestors, and it's random. And a simple way to think of it is, think of your parents as a big pot of vegetable soup. You put one ladle in your bowl and another ladle in your brother's bowl. You might have 3 carrots and 5 green beans, and he might have 2 carrots and 10 green beans. It's just random. Another common test is Y DNA. Y is passed down from father to son to son to son. Women can't take a Y DNA test because the sex chromosome, if you inherit an X from your father and an X from your mother, you're a girl. And if you inherit an X from your mother and a Y from your father, you're a boy. Now, they have not yet isolated a gene that determines gender identity, but it wouldn't surprise me if they do someday. But for all practical purposes, we're calling an XX a girl and an XY a boy. So a Y DNA test will follow a male line back many generations because the Y chromosome mutates very little over time. There's also mitochondrial DNA. You remember I talked about mitochondrial DNA that's outside the nucleus, and that's passed from a mother to all her children, but only her daughters pass it on after that. So, if you are a male or a female, this chart is just a little bit misleading because this circle here is pink. But it could all, even if it's blue, the mitochondrial line is mother to mother to her mother to her mother to her mother, all the way back through time. And so it just follows this one line right here. But if you're a male in this circle here, then it ends with you. Now there is another inheritance pattern that's worth mentioning, and that's what this chart is really designed for. And that's the inheritance of the X chromosome. Remember, the female passes the X to all her children, but not to, a son gets a Y, so he doesn't pass down his mother's, he passes down his mother's X, but only his daughters will pass it on after that. It's a little complicated, but if you look at this chart, you can figure it out. This chart goes out to the 5th great grandparent range out here. And of 128 5th great grandparents, a woman can only inherit the X chromosome from 34 of them. So that really narrows things down. And if you're a male in this circle, you only inherit X from this side. So there's just 21 possibilities if you're a male. I have a big mystery in my line that I would like to figure out through X inheritance, but I'm afraid it might be too far back. So what are the direct-to-consumer testing companies? These are the major ones. And before you take a DNA test, if you haven't taken one, you've got to be aware of how serious it can be, the results can be. It can be very upsetting to some people, and you've got to think about that before you jump in. I know personally at least one person who found out that her the man who raised her was not her biological father, and I know at least 3 people who found a half-sibling that they never knew about. So these results can be life-altering. Family tree DNA is a good one. They offer the Y-DNA test and the mtDNA test, as well as the autosomal DNA test. So it's kind of a full service. They have both free and paid accounts. They have about 1.7 million in their autosomal DNA database. They provide a match list with an option to add a tree. And you can transfer your DNA profile from another company to them. They'll accept somebody else's test. And they have really advanced comparison tools. Plus, they also have what they call a surname project, and the DAR has become involved in that for daughters who have done their DNA can join that DNA project that they have on Family Tree. And we have Ancestry. I mean, Ancestry is the most advertised, and they have both free and paid accounts. They do autosomal DNA only, and in fact, they don't even include the sex chromosome in their analysis. So they analyze 22 of your chromosomes, not the 23rd one. But they have over 22 million in their database. They provide you with a match list, and their emphasis is on tree building, which is my primary goal. They do not accept DNA profiles from other companies, so you have to do their test. But they do allow you to export your DNA profile to another site. And I have had a paid Ancestry account since 2005. So I don't know what the free account gets you anymore. I understand they recently took away some of the benefits from the free account. 23andMe, a lot of people have done 23andMe. They have both free and paid accounts. They have about 12 million in their database. They include Y-DNA and mtDNA, mitochondrial DNA, in their results, but they don't offer any standalone tests. They just have the one test. They provide you with a match list, but they have very few tree building tools. Their emphasis is on health and wellness, and they do not accept DNA profiles done at other companies. MyHeritage is based in Israel. They have a higher proportion of non-US members. They have over 6 million in their DNA database. They have both free and paid accounts. They do autosomal DNA only. They provide you with a match list, and they have pretty good tree building tools. They will allow you to upload your DNA profile from another company, and they offer advanced DNA comparison tools. Living DNA is based in the UK, and they might have mostly British users. They have about 1 million in their database. They include Y-DNA and mtDNA in their analysis, but their emphasis is really just on health and ethnicity. Then there's another website called GEDmatch. They do not sell DNA kits, but they will accept DNA profiles from just about anywhere, and that gives you an opportunity to find matches across consumer lines. In other words, I test on Ancestry, upload to GEDmatch, and I can see who I match at 23andMe. And they have a lot of advanced comparison tools. Now let's talk about the leads method. This is my solid attempt at using Microsoft Office. I'm not very well schooled in that. But the leads method actually has a connection to Dewitt County. It was developed by Dana Leeds, and she's a Kopenbarger descendant from one of our earliest families here. This is a method of color coding your matches. Now, I chose some second cousins on my dad's side because there aren't very many. I don't have any first cousins on my dad's side because he was an only child. And I've already identified the 4 lines that I separated them into. But you see the ones with a check mark, I haven't identified those people. But I can see what line they fall into. And if you don't already know all the surnames involved, then this helps you group them at least, so you know that who matches with who and where to look further. And step-by-step instructions for using the leads method appear on her website. Then there's DNA Painter. The DNA Painter website allows you to take specific matches and paint them by chromosomes on where you match. This information needs to come from one of the companies like FTDNA or GEDmatch that breaks it down into specific places on your chromosomes. And anytime you see a chromosome painter, it's going to appear similar to this. Your 23 chromosomes are all different sizes, so it always starts with the longest and then goes down to the smallest. And in this particular case, I only mapped 3 matches. And the blue is on my dad's side, this red is on my mom's side, and this William B. Dillow one, my match to him is very specific because the cousin that I matched descended from William B. Dillow and his first wife, and I descended from him and his second wife. So I know that that DNA is specific to that person. But you can put, like I said, this is only 3 matches that I put on there, so it's kind of sparse. But once you fill it all in, you can see where your matches overlap. And then when you have an unknown match, you can see where they're matching. You can triangulate that. The DNA Painter website also has the WATO tool. W-A-T-O stands for what are the odds. And you can put in a variety of information, and then it gives you a breakdown of likelihood that who the parent of a particular match might be and what line they fall into. This is something that you'll want to keep handy. I use this all the time. This is Blaine Bettinger's Shared CM project. Blaine Bettinger is probably the top genetic genealogist scientist in the country. And he took thousands and thousands of DNA results where they have a known relationship and put the ranges in here. So you have the range, the known range that he found, and then you have the average number of centimorgans. I'm going to take this time to mention that DNA by itself is not proof of anything except parent-child and full siblings. You can prove that with DNA by itself. Anything beyond that close relationship, DNA is just a clue. And DNA will support your conclusions, but not prove. So for example, I have a half-sister, and she and I share almost the same amount of DNA that I share with one of my first cousins. So just looking at the DNA alone doesn't prove that she's my half-sister. You have to support that with documentary evidence. But this chart comes in real handy, and you'll notice that the first one, the first 0 shows up at second cousin twice removed. So here you are, your average share with your second cousin is 229, but you might not share any DNA with his grandchild. I have 3 second cousins that are siblings, and at one of them I match at 118 centimorgans, and another one I match at 257, more than twice the amount. I mean, that's just how random it is. What is a second cousin twice removed anyway? This chart is handy because this confuses the heck out of people. You determine your cousin relationships. First, you have to find your most recent common ancestor. Then you look at which one of you has the closest relationship to them. And then you count how many generations the other person is from you. So let's do something really simple. I have a first cousin, okay? We have the same grandparents. But my first cousin's children are my first cousins once removed. And don't let age fool you, because age is not part of the equation. The ages can be way off, seem kind of crazy, but it all has to do with your relationship to that common ancestor. Now let's go into Ancestry. Now, if any of you have brought up your Ancestry homepage, in the upper right-hand corner, it's not shown on this slide, but in the upper right-hand corner of your homepage, there is a question mark with a circle around it. And that has a drop-down menu, and one of them is Ancestry Academy. And they have a number of videos in there that you can watch on different things, how to do genealogy, and the number of them are about DNA. So it's a good idea to look through those. So if you click on DNA, you get this drop down, your results summary, origins, that is your ethnicity estimate. And they use about 18 million in their database to calculate that. You have matches, through lines. Through lines you'll see is trademarked tool of Ancestry, and it's important that you understand how through lines works. We have traits, which in my ballpark, that's just kind of for fun. Compare, you can compare your ethnicity estimate with other people that you match. Surveys, that's another kind of a fluffy thing. Activate a test, buy another test, and know your pet DNA. DNA cells have been dwindling, so now they're offering pet DNA as well. I don't think you're going to get a match list though. Now if you go to your results summary, you get a page like this. Here's the most important thing that you can do. Click on settings up here at the upper right hand corner. And that brings up just a very plain form to fill out. You'll see I obscured my date of birth because you don't really need to know how old I am. The most important thing is that you link your DNA to your tree. If you want to do tree building, you need to link your DNA, link it to who you are in your tree. Most people start their tree with themselves. You're usually the home person. But it's real simple. You just make a couple clicks, and then you're attached to your tree. Then we have research consents. You can either participate in research or not, whatever. Visibility, you want your DNA matches on. And your ethnicity estimate. It's so random that I don't know why you'd want to hide that anyway. DNA test sharing. You can go into here and this is where you would make somebody else the manager of your DNA profile, or they could make you manager of their DNA profile. And then download or delete. I'm assuming you're not gonna wanna delete your DNA test, but this is where you would download it in order to upload it to like GEDmatch or another site. Then if you go back to your settings page, go to your results summary and go to click on origins. Discover your origins, that is actually the button. And this is your ethnicity estimate, and I stress estimate. You'll see that mine says I'm 74% from England and Northwest Europe, but if you click on that, you'll find that the whole description says primarily located in Channel Islands and England, but also found in Belgium, France, Germany, Isle of Man, Luxembourg, Netherlands, Switzerland, and Wales. So yeah, that's a pretty broad net. Then 18% Germanic Europe. When you click on that, the whole thing says primarily located in Germany and the Netherlands, but also found in Austria, Belgium, Czech Republic, France, Hungary, Luxembourg, Slovenia, and Switzerland. So again, it's a really generalized thing. And I know from my research that I have a lot of German ancestors, and I really expected to have a higher percentage of German. Now, if you scroll down to ethnicity inherited from each parent, it will show you probably parent 1 and parent 2, or you can assign paternal or maternal. Then scroll down to their chromosome painter. Ancestry is lagging behind in their chromosome painter. Most other sites have a chromosome comparison tool. They do not. This is the only chromosome painter that I know that they have on their site. And this is just showing where they got their ethnicity estimate. One is paternal and the other is maternal. And some of these gray areas are unassigned, so who knows what that might be. It might be worth mentioning here that some people believe that paternal DNA carries more weight than the maternal, and that simply isn't true. It's all random. If you scroll down to compare with matches, here's my comparison to my full brother and my half sister. And this is a good example of the randomness of inheritance, because I'm showing 74% English and 18% German, and look at my brother, he's showing almost half German. And we have both the same parents. Now if you go back to your DNA summary and view matches, DNA matches, all matches, it comes up on the all matches page. Then you can separate them by parent and ancestry. Makes a stab at separating your matches by parent, but it's frequently not correct. You have to look for yourself. Then if you click on by ancestor, that takes you to through lines. And you can click on by location, which to me doesn't really show me anything worthwhile. It's just shows you where some of your matches live. So if you click on by ancestor, let's go to through lines. So in the old days, okay, before the internet and before DNA matching, DNA tests, if you were gonna figure out how you were related to somebody, you'd look at your tree, you'd look at their tree, and you'd try to find a common ancestor. And the most recent common ancestor is known as a MRCA, MRCA. And then that's how you would figure out if they're your second cousin or whatever. Well, Ancestry compares your matches tree with your tree, does the same thing with a computer program, but it also matches across all the trees on their site. So let's say you have a match who has, he has himself, his parents, and his grandparents. But your most recent common ancestor would be his great-grandparents, but they're not in his tree. But those people are in somebody else's tree, and his great-grandparents are in your tree. So it connects you across all those trees and suggests how you might be related. Then your through lines will show you those results. I have, in my own tree, I put this little leaf and stem icon in their picture place, so that when I'm way back in my tree, I can easily see who my direct line is. Because if you get back 5 or 6 generations, you might not remember which daughter it was that married into your line. So no matter where I'm at in my tree, I can see who my direct ancestor was. And I also use that to signify that I have researched that person as far as I think I can take it. I've exhausted all the possible clues for that person. So if you add or change an ancestor in your tree, it will typically take about 2 days for your through lines suggestion to update. So I'm going to show you my through lines for my grandfather, Willis Ayers. He had a bunch of children. I only have 3 of them pictured here. And so Norma Jean was my mother. And then it shows me and my brother and my half-sister, because we all descended from her. Over here's my Uncle Walt, and I have 3 DNA matches that descended from him. If I click that arrow, the drop-down menu would show them to me. And then over here I have Uncle Dean, and this DNA match here is not known to me. I don't know exactly who she is. Her tree does not show her mother's name because she's still living. So anytime you show somebody still living in Ancestry, it comes up private. I have Uncle Dean in my tree. I have his living daughter in my tree because I know her name and her information. But I can't verify if that's her mother or not. So, because there are other possibilities. None of the married names that I have for his daughter match up to this woman's tree. So, either Uncle Dean's daughter that I know about had a child out of wedlock, or Uncle Dean had a daughter that I don't know about. I mean, those are both possibilities you have to consider. So I haven't found any collateral documentation to show who her mother was, but she has him in her tree as her grandfather. This is the through lines for one of my 5th great-grandfathers, Archibald Ruddle. And you'll see all these children here. I descended from Isaac. And all these children here I have in my tree. And these people descended from those persons. But you'll see that this one says evaluate. And I remember when I was building the tree for Archibald Ruddle, I left this Sarah out because she just didn't seem to mesh. There were reasons, but I'm not gonna go all into it. But then here I have this DNA match that says she descended from her, and that Archibald is her however many great-grandfather. So I spent an afternoon going down that rabbit hole and finally found the documentation to add this Sarah as one of his daughters. So now when you go in my through lines, it no longer says evaluate because I have her in my tree. So always remember that your DNA matches are your matches. There's no doubt about that. The question is how they match, what the relationship path is. That's for you to figure out. And these ones with a little blue dot in front of them means that they haven't been viewed yet. You haven't viewed them yet. So now go back to your all matches page and we'll look at the filters that are available. Unviewed, that's the blue dot that I just showed you. Common ancestors, you'll see that they have common ancestors here for my half-sister because these are common ancestors that Ancestry is suggesting. Notes, that's something that you add. You can, there's a big window to add however many notes you want to an individual match. Trees, this drop down gives you a choice of private, public, or unlinked. So a private tree probably isn't going to tell you very much. You can always try to send a message to the owner of the tree. I will tell you that message response is really low. And then we get to shared DNA and groups. Under shared DNA, you get this drop-down menu, and this all matches. This was my match count. I don't know any other place on their website where you can find how many matches you have. 37,703, but that was on January 10th. When I checked again yesterday afternoon, I had 38,113. That's 451 more in 5 weeks. Now I expect that to slow down because a lot of people got a kid for Christmas. So a lot of kids are being added, you know. But don't let that number intimidate you because some of those, especially, see you have distant matches between 6 and 20 shared centimorgans. Some of those on the low end may simply be noise, what they call noise. I mean, we're all related somehow way back, but not necessarily in a genealogical term. And in terms of genealogy, it's generally confined to the time since the beginning of the use of surnames, which was like the mid-1000s. But you might have a little bit of DNA that's matching even farther back than that. But how are you going to identify them? Thor? Oh yeah, our most recent common ancestor was Thor. Well, okay, kind of need a surname. Then you have a custom centimorgan range, and this is where I tend to use my Blaine Bettinger's shared CM match sheet. So you can enter, if I want to look at my first cousins, I find the first cousin range on that chart and enter those values in there, and then hit apply, and that'll bring up everybody that matches me in that range. Then if you look at groups, this is where you find a tool that's similar to the Leeds method. It's color coding. Although when you do the Leeds method, it's nice to see it all on one spreadsheet at a time. Where in this case, it's a little different. So first it'll show paternal and maternal, or you can choose which one. You'll see it says member access, so some of this is probably not available on the free accounts. But when you get down here to custom groups, you can click on new matches, and I don't know exactly what they mean by new matches. How new, I don't know. They don't tell you what they mean by that exactly. Is it gonna be everybody in the last month? Is it gonna be everybody in the last 3 years? I don't know. Starred matches, this is something that's assigned by you. You might use that to point out a particularly important DNA match that you're trying to prove something through. Or you might use it to signify one that needs more study, whatever. You can assign that to whatever you want. Then you have these color-coded ones. There are 24 colors available, and before I realized I was gonna run out of colors pretty quick, so I had to go in and redo it. But ordinarily you would use one color for one ancestral line, for one surname. And if you click on, let's say Aerosmith, for example, and I hit apply, then I would bring up a list of everybody that I've assigned that color to. So there are 24 colors available, and that means if you go up through your third great grandparents, that takes up 16 of them. So I wish they had more categories that you could add. Now, if you go up here to search and sort, when you click on search, you get this. You can put in your match's name if there's somebody in particular you're looking for. A lot of people use a pseudonym, a username that's not their actual name. Sometimes those people are hard to find. Or you can look for surname and matches trees. I use that quite a bit. Well, let's say you have a common name, and one of my surnames actually is Ritter, and it's more common than you might think it was. But my Ritter was born in Baltimore, so I would put Baltimore, Maryland in here to help narrow it down. And then that will show you all your matches that have that name in their tree. It doesn't mean necessarily it's your person that you're looking for, but that's an easier way to look for it than going individually through 38,000 matches. Then when you click on sort, that is simply a choice between close to distant, which is the default that it comes up to begin with. It always shows your closest match first, and then it goes down from there. Or you can choose date, newest to oldest, but again, I'm not sure what they mean by that. Newest, obviously, would be one that got in yesterday, but you can search it that way. Let's see where we're at. Does anybody need a break? Or shall we keep going? The third segment is going to take another 20 minutes probably. We okay? All right. What I want you to do, those of you who have your tree brought up, is use the filters on your All Matches page and find a match, click on unviewed, or it could be somebody you viewed, but I'd rather have you pick somebody you don't know. Click unviewed, common ancestors, and public linked tree. And then just bring up the first person on the list and open their profile. Here's one of mine that I picked at random. And just by happenstance, this turned out to be a really good one to use as an example. You see that I have blacked out names that might identify living persons. They obviously agreed to share their DNA with me, but they didn't agree to share it with a room full of strangers, did they? So this shows a relationship estimate between me and Rick here. Second to third cousin on my maternal side. We just share 1% DNA, 94 centimorgans. On your page, you'll see in the upper right-hand corner, there is a little tools icon. It doesn't show on this slide. You can use that to hide a match. Sometimes certain matches are sensitive to certain people, so you can hide a match if you feel the need to. So if we look at common ancestors here, ancestry is suggesting that we are fourth cousins, not second to third. And that our MERCA, most recent common ancestor, or ancestral couple, is John Twist and Phoebe Russell. For my DAR sisters, Phoebe is actually my Patriot's daughter. So second or third, and this says we're fourth. That's kind of a big leap. So second or third cousin, that is based solely on his DNA, our DNA match. This one over here, common ancestors, is based on trees. So if you click on this blue highlighted area, that's going to bring up your possible DNA relationships. So almost half of people who share 94 centimorgans turn out to be these relationships here. You see them? Second cousin once removed, half second cousin, etc., etc. And if you scroll all the way at the bottom, it says that less than 1% of fourth cousins share that much DNA. But if you look at that shared centimorgan chart, it says that fourth cousins share an average of 35 centimorgans, but have been known to share anywhere between 0 and 139. So it would not be totally unheard of for us to be fourth cousins. Still, this makes me think that Rick and I might be related in more than one way. And there's a lot of information on this page, including a drop-down window. How do we estimate DNA relationships? You should probably read that at some point. And at the very bottom of the page it says, evaluating DNA evidence. DNA evidence may support or contradict other forms of evidence and may point to different sources of evidence. Other possible relationships between people should also be considered. So what must a scientist do? You have to reevaluate your theories when new evidence emerges. But this is a piece of evidence for you to think about. And up here you'll see it says unweighted shared DNA. So I had to dig a little to find out what that actually means. Ancestry has what's called a timber algorithm, and that's a method for weeding out particles of DNA that are not likely to apply to a genealogical relationship. But they only apply this to matches that are less than 90 centimorgans. So this is 94, so it's anything over 90 is unweighted. But if you have a match that's under 90, then it's going to give you a little slightly different phrase there. Now, if you go back to, just hit your back button and go to your matches DNA profile, Rick here, you would ordinarily start by comparing your tree with his tree. Oh, look at his tree. He has 2 people in his tree. What am I gonna learn from that? I have to assume that this right here is Rick, and he's living. And so this would be his mother, and you'll see that her name is in there, so I'm assuming that she's deceased. But it also says null, and null means there is no other information, no birth or death date, no locations, nothing, just a name. Well, I had to go down that rabbit hole, and I found her obituary. She is indeed deceased, and so forth. Then when you look, let's look here first. You can click on ethnicity and compare your match's ethnicity to yours, but it's so random, I don't really find that useful. And then the shared matches. Shared matches are usually very important. That can weed out what side of the family they're on and so forth. But I've got to tell you that Ancestry will show me however many centimorgans I match somebody, even if it's really low. But on your shared match list, those people all have to match your match at 20 centimorgans or more. If it's under 20 centimorgans, they won't appear on the shared match list. And this is important because for a while, I never knew that for a long time, and I thought, well, they should match so-and-so, and you know, and they're not on the shared match list. Well, that's why. There's less than 20 centimorgans. So over here on the common ancestors, Rick could be your 4th cousin through John Twist and Phoebe Russell. Ancestry used to have, below that, if there was another possible path, they would list it down here, but I don't think they're doing that anymore. And I don't know why, because I have several distant cousins who I'm related to in more than one path. So if you click on, you can only click on one of these people, although they were our common ancestral couple. If I click on John Twist here, that takes me to this page, and it shows our lines that we went down. So I descended from Cicero. He was our first resident out there by Weldon. That's my relationship path. And Rick here descended from Cicero's brother John. So these 2 people appear because those 2 people are in my tree. Then these 2 people are not. See where it says evaluate? So if you click on evaluate, another window opens up over here on the right, and it shows where Ancestry got the information to fill in the blanks. Because remember, Rick had just 2 people in his tree. Those people weren't in his tree. They found them in other trees to match it up with mine. Now, you see some of them are in blue, and you can click on those and see what they've got in their tree and see if that sounds reasonable to what you're trying to achieve. So again, the fact that Rick and I share 94 centimorgans of DNA is indisputable. It's just the relationship path that's at question. Now, if you hit the back button in the upper left-hand corner, this will go back to Rick's DNA profile page. And if you click on your DNA match's name, this will bring up his user profile. So you can find out a lot sometimes about your match's user profile, and you can add this to your own profile if you choose. There's a lot of things you can put in there. Where you're from, how long you've been doing genealogy. You can add a list of surnames that you're interested in or locations that you're interested in. Lots of stuff you can put in there. So he didn't put anything except his name, and Ancestry puts in when you joined and the last time that you were active, and it shows that he was last active over a year ago. So I am not likely to send him a message because it looks to me like maybe he lost interest. So over here on this relationship banner, those of you who just have your own DNA up there are only going to see you and your match. But if I click this drop-down menu, then I can see all those other DNA profiles that I manage and compare them to Rick. Well, there are, I don't know, 5 or 6 people on that list who I already know are twist descendants. So I went in there and compared each of them to Rick to see how many centimorgans they matched with him. And then underneath that banner, lo and behold, Rick has 3 trees, and this one over here has 741 people in it. Okay? But he linked his DNA to this one over here with 2 people. So he has a tree with 2 people, tells us nothing. 3 people is probably him and his mother and his father. But this one here, I looked at, and it has that whole line of twists back to our common ancestor, John. So by now, I'm feeling pretty sure that this is the correct path. So if you click on the match banner, it'll take you back to his DNA profile page. Now you can connect this person to your tree. I did not connect Rick to my tree because to do that I have to add the 2 people that were missing that said evaluate, and I just didn't feel like it was that important. I have connected a lot of my DNA matches to my tree. You can send your match a message. And you can edit the relationship. Remember, it said we're 2nd or 3rd cousins. Well, I've pretty much confirmed that he's going to be my 4th cousin. So if you click on Edit Relationship, you get this drop-down menu. You can assign which side of the family it is. Happens to be on my maternal side. And then you get a drop-down menu here that gives you all sorts of different relationships to choose from. So I went in there and marked him as a 4th cousin. Then go to Add or Edit Groups. I went in there and marked him as a twist and a Russell because I know that's our ancestral couple that he descended from. Then I added a note. My notes, I like to start with our relationship, so I put 4C, 4th cousin. He descended from John Twist, Phoebe Russell, through their son John. His middle name was Almond, and everybody puts almond like the nut. Almond is actually a Bible name. And then I put in there the matches of some of the other profiles that I managed. So my half-sister matches him at 65 centimorgans, my brother 58, and then my cousin Sony and my cousin Andrea are just 14 and 8. That's under 20. So I wouldn't have known that on the shared match list. And then he only matches 11 with Brooke, and that's my daughter. So it went from a 94 centimorgan match with me to an 11 centimorgan match with my daughter. Then when you return to your all matches page and bring up that particular match, all that information I put in there then appears. My comments right here on the primary list. This looks blank, but it's not. It's gray and peach. And if you mouse over those, the surname will pop up. You'll see. So then he's been identified on the main list. And that's how you do it. And now we're exhausted and we're going to bed. We burned it down. Who has a question? No question? Go ahead.
Some people have records and some people don't. Is it just a matter of how comfortable you feel? If you want to put a death certificate ad, or the records that that you verified for your ancestors, or
This is the importance of looking at other people's trees, and I'll give you an example. My Lemmel line came from southern Indiana, Harrison County, way down to the southern tip of Indiana, but their stuff is not online. So, in my great-grandfather is in 100 and some trees on Ancestry, and there are only, I think, 12 that have identified his parents correctly. Because you have to go there and find the information. So I put that in my tree for other people.
so you do upload your, okay.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
So let's say you're looking at someone else's tree and here's another good example. My Ritter that was born in Baltimore, I have met another Ritter researcher that lives up there in Annapolis. And I got a lot of stuff from her that because she's there to go find the records and put them online, and now I can use those records.
Yeah.
You're not necessarily going to find that stuff through Ancestry because they haven't, there's so much that you have to go and find yourself that's not online. And I know that Ancestry's ads would have you think that you can sit down at your computer in your pajamas after supper and have your whole tree done by bedtime. And that's just not the way it is. That's why I'm so happy that we have such a complete genealogy room over here for DeWitt County. We've got probate records from the beginning of the county up through 1950, and just all sorts of resources that stuff just isn't online. Almost all the marriage records and some of the death records can be found online. Of course, the Church of Latter-day Saints did a whole lot of that. But like I said, there's a lot that's not there that you have to go find for yourself. Go ahead.
I know there's some misspellings of names, like the first name. So I have one of my great grandmothers. It's Rosanna, but sometimes she was known as Rosie. Or there was Rose spelled out like a garden rose, and then Anna, one word, but then another variation with the E removed. And so I was going by the documents. So I have a death certificate that says Rosie Coffin, but then I have a birth certificate or the census records are pretty much illegible. But my birth certificate for her is slightly different spelling of her name.
Yeah.
Both names.
It's
So
it's still the same person.
If they're known by multiple names, put them all in there.
All in.
Because during the search engine, that's what it's looking for.
Okay.
So, pick out, other people can use that information.
Okay.
Now, your Rick, by any chance, is his real name Thaddeus in your tree? Is
Rick?
his name Rick?
My match, Rick?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
I can't find. You're in my tree,
Oh, I am.
and I can't find Rick. But
Well,
Thaddeus.
I don't think we're related. Well, Thaddeus is probably deceased.
Well, yeah, now I could be totally wrong here, I have some dates here that kind of wacko.
His, and that name might have been passed down also, I don't know, because Thaddeus Russell was my patriot, and then his daughter married John Twist, and they had a son, Thaddeus, but he died as a teenager. But
Yeah, he did.
Cicero didn't name any of his children Thaddeus, but John might have.
Alright. Well, we can get together later. You're through a sister-in-law
Yeah.
of mine.
Yeah, I'm not on your DNA match list.
No,
You showed several examples where people had 3 trees. Do you recommend having a maternal tree and a paternal tree? Or, because
I
they can
really
get too
don't.
big.
I really
Okay.
don't.
Just one.
I know some people do that. Well, on Ancestry, you can put however many people you want in there,
Right.
it doesn't matter. But if you go back far enough, you're likely to find that you're related through your mom, on your mom's side and your dad's side, way back there somewhere. So almost always the home person is yourself.
Okay.
Just be sure that when you put living people in there, that you don't mark them deceased, because that's to protect their privacy. So they'll come up private. Though honestly, if you Google obituaries, you can often find out those names anyway, but still, their birth date and all that should be private as long as they're living. Do you have any questions on Zoom?
Yeah, Martha asks, are there any set ways to know through centimorgans that the person is related in another way, i.e. another family line?
Not just through, like, it's just like Rick here. You know, we match really high for fourth cousins. So I have marked him as a twist, the twist line, but it's still possible that we're related in another way as well. So I would have to study his tree, and I had time for that. So, like an ancestry used to tell you, oh, we found this other possible relationship, but I haven't seen them do that in a long time. And I don't know why they would quit doing that, because I probably have, at least 2, maybe 3 DNA matches that are related to me in more than one way.
And your experience is that substantially increases the amount of DNA you share.
Maybe, maybe not. Because of the randomness of DNA inheritance, even if I found out on paper that we were related another way, there's no way in Ancestry for me to figure out where the DNA came from. Being fourth cousins, that means we share a 5th great grandfather, so if he has another common ancestor that far back, we might not share any. I was related to her husband, but we didn't share any DNA.
Yeah.
Now, you can, if you really get into DNA comparisons, it's a little over my head, frankly, you can go to other sites like GEDmatch in particular. They have a lot of advanced comparison tools, and you can find out, remember I showed you the chromosome browser? You can find out exactly where your matches are on your chromosomes, and then you can triangulate, in other words, compare yours to 2 other people and see where they overlap.
Yeah, I think you can actually put in 7 people, I believe, at GEDmatch.
I don't know, quite a few.
Yeah, and so you can put in 7 people that you share
Yeah.
and see where the chromosomes match up.
So that would be, you can't do something like that on Ancestry. But I think that's the only way you'd be able to figure out which path, you know, how many centimorgans are contributed from each path.
you have any recommendations on how to deal with people who either don't accept DNA or don't accept a relationship that you can prove on paper, or any recommendations in terms of that?
Trying to convince somebody about DNA relationships. You're gonna have to just study DNA for yourself. I know my brother can't believe that ours is so different. Well, he doesn't understand the
Yeah.
random inheritance. And then when you discover that somebody is, DNA has unlocked very many secrets that people thought they were taking to their grave. And those can be really hard to accept. I have a second great grandfather who was born out of wedlock, and he took the surname of the man that his mother married when he was 5 years old. So, I mean, it was not a big leap to know that he was born out of wedlock. And through a Y-DNA test, I was able to figure out what family he came up from. But he has a gazillion descendants with that surname that he grew up with. And I can see where if you've lived 70 years with the same surname, you're not about to change it. And it's hard to accept that your true surname should be something else. But that's what the DNA is showing. Yes.
If you created your family tree, like an Ancestry.com, before you had your DNA test, and now that you have your DNA test, is there a way to go back in that family tree and say, do you like have a little check mark that in your family tree to say, okay, that's DNA verified, or?
You should see my tree.
Okay.
I make a lot of notes in my tree because almost every record that you enter, there's a place to add narrative.
Uh-huh.
And some of my way back ones in particular, where records can be hard to come by, I usually put even in the very first, like, birth category, I might put in there 5 independent DNA matches that support this relationship. And by independent DNA matches, what I mean is, like Rick here, we're fourth cousins, and but he descended from a different son of John than I did. So that would be an independent match. He didn't come down through my line, he came down through another line. And that supports the relationship. It's not proof, it's just additional evidence. Did you have any other ones, Elena?
No.
So if you're looking at historical society applications, do you just typically download the DNA and then send it to that organization? No.
No.
Do you get in your tree?
Well, all I can say is for DAR, they're just starting to get into DNA relationships, and you still have to have the paper documentation. They're not going to take DNA alone, and you can see why. I mean, it's so random.
Yeah,
And we're talking about many generations ago. So the DNA match is real. The path is what has to be verified.
Gotcha.
Have you done your DNA
I've done my DNA, yes.
on Ancestry?
Yes.
I would suggest that you upload it to Family Tree DNA and join that DAR project.
Oh, okay. I haven't done that yet, so, okay, let me make a note of that. Okay, my new over here.
What sites besides Ancestry do you find valuable?
GEDmatch is big. Ancestry has the most records, and of course there's always Family Search for records if you know how to find them. they can be hard to find, but I've found some really good stuff. And I follow a whole lot of genealogy Facebook pages, and you get a lot of good hints from there too.
So, I have ancestors from the Baltimore area going back into the 1700s, early 1700s. Are there records in terms of Maryland, Baltimore, that you find particularly valuable? Like county or state or?
A couple years ago, I wrote to the Baltimore County. Was it Baltimore County? Or,
Cecil, isn't it? Cecil County?
I don't know, there's a few overlapping counties over there. St. Mary's County maybe that I wrote to. And when you write to a genealogical society, it's kind of like throwing a dart. And you hope you get somebody that's going to be really interested in finding what you're looking for, and I hit a bullseye. This guy even called me a couple times to make sure he was finding the right stuff, and he sent me a whole envelope full of stuff that was, and this would be the outskirts of Baltimore. Now, if you go to Baltimore, see, I have, my Ritters and Aerosmiths came from early 1700s Baltimore, and there seem to be a lot of missing records. Marriage records, for example. But a lot of times writing to, you might try writing to the state, Baltimore, Maryland State Genealogical Society, and maybe they could point you in the right direction, I don't know. Also, I don't know if you've been to the Allen County Public Library, and yeah, they have a lot of, awful lot of resources. Anyone else? Well, that ends it then. And I thank everybody for coming. And if you want me to sit down one-on-one with you sometime, or volunteer in our genealogy room over here every Thursday, I'd be happy to give you a little one-on-one. Thank you, Zoomers. I hope it was educational.